everybody. This is Liz coming back to you today with someone that you don't know because they're always behind the camera. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself, how he was raised, a little bit about his family. Welcome.
I'm Terrell Nelson. I work for the Mike Andes media team and do some editing. I go out on the turnarounds with Mike and shoot video. And how I was raised, that's a hefty question. I grew up in the Ferndale area and hardworking family. My mom was a trainer. My brother, after he got out of the Marine Corps, he's a trainer, and his wife. So they all went and worked at the Anytime Fitness with Mike. And my mom kind of got to see the progression of Mike from when she met him, I think when he was like 18. Started working at the gym and started to hear bits and pieces of like, oh, he's starting his own lawn care business and maybe you could go work for him. And to then finding out that he's had become the owner of that gym. But I was raised Christian. My mom used to read the Bible to me when I was like 10 years old. And they kind of give us free reign to do what we pleased after I was like middle school. They stopped forcing us to go to church, and my dad always taught me to work hard and taught me what it meant to be respectful. My mom taught me how to be compassionate. I grew up with two older brothers. We had been playing rugby since we were 10 years old, and those are some of the things that we love doing. I've always been creative. I've always loved drawing, and didn't really know what I wanted to do when I got to high school. I was kind of a stoner and didn't have much direction, and so I ended up going to college at Western, where I barely got in because I had like failed my math class my senior year, and I was like, didn't think, and then my test scores to get into college were pretty low, and so the rugby coaches at Western were helping me out, and they kind of I got denied, and then I just wrote up this really good appeal letter and told a good story, and they let me in, and so I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, oh, people say C's get degrees, like we'll be good here, we'll be good, and then
That's awesome.
yeah, and so I just was a great rugby player, and kind of that led me down that path. I spent 5 years at Western and kind of got my stuff together the last 2 years and started getting good grades and thinking about what I wanted to do, and got burnt out because that happens to a lot of people who are designing, and I didn't like videography wasn't even on my radar back then. So started working construction. I'd worked like painting jobs, fishery job, construction when I first got out of school for like 8 months, and then I had a little change in my pocket, and I'm like, I'm gonna go travel. So yeah, again, I didn't really have the wherewithal to like start applying to studios and stuff like that. I didn't really think I was good enough. I had an okay portfolio coming out of school, but nothing that was like real world. And so I remember my brother calling me when I was in Florence and being like, "Hey, like I think I can get you a job at the media team with Mike." And I had no idea who Mike was, and we can get into that in a little bit of like
Mhm.
what it looked like for me to start out there. Um, but that's when I was like, all right, I have a job when I get home. Maybe.
Amazing. Amazing. So, how old were you when your mom was working at Anytime Fitness? Were you in middle school? When she first was working there?
I don't actually know how old I was. I know she trained for, it must have been at least 12 years.
For sure.
And she had like, at the time, or at one point in time, she had more clients than like all the trainers combined in the county. because she was one of the only people willing to take on some of the older clientele
Hmm.
that like couldn't afford physical therapy and they needed real rehabilitation.
Hmm.
I've seen her bring people from being in a wheelchair to, you know, doing workouts.
Yeah,
So,
she had the most incredible reputation in our county for being one of the best trainers. Pretty
mhm.
phenomenal. So, quite the mom that you had. And
Oh,
so,
I
I
agree.
know that Christian was in the military and then he came back and he started working as a trainer at Anytime Fitness as well. And
Mhm.
at that time, did you know anything about Mike or did they ever talk about him? Or was it just, oh, this is our job at Anytime Fitness and there was really no future that you knew about at Augusta?
My mom would talk about him, and before I had even gone to college, she had mentioned like, "Hey, you should go apply." So I remember pulling up to the Augusta Lawn Care Bellingham shop. Um, Shoot, I must have been like 19, 20, looking for a summer gig, and I just walked in. They're like, "You can apply online." And so I didn't get the job, but I was aware of Mike, and
Yeah.
I knew that he was um, successful from an early age, and my mom always spoke very highly of him, and like I would hear bits and pieces. Um, my brother has always loved Mike from the jump. Um, he's always looked up to him
Hmm.
from starting at the gym. Um,
Yeah, so your brother's gift is really selling. He was great at being a trainer, but fantastic at convincing people of anything, pretty much. And so, one thing that is different about Augusta that was exactly the same for me and many other people is if there was no position for someone, but Mike had a lot of confidence in them and could see potential, he would create a position for them. And I remember him talking to Christian. Christian and his wife talked about buying the gym. And Mike recognized in him so much potential and his love for Mike and his love for, his team and everything the vision of Mike was doing. And so Mike, he came to me and he's like, we need to do something for Christian. And if we could create a position for him, then he could keep working for us and keep training. And so he was at the very beginning of Copilot, and Mike brought him on as one of the salespeople. And I remember him spending hours with him, training him to learn to sell and about the product and all of that. And he's been doing that for quite a while. So you're saying when you went to college, were you going for anything in creative design?
yeah, graphic design.
Okay. So you were
Mhm.
doing that at Western, and what kind of degree is that? Two, four?
It's a 2-year program, but it's an undergrad degree.
And so during that time, were you living at home?
I moved home during COVID for like 8 months, and it's good. My parents had like solid home. But I lived in the dorms first year. 2 years after that, I was in Bellingham. I was in an apartment with a couple of buddies, um, and then my last year, I moved out of my parents' place again and hanging out in Bellingham.
How did you end up getting into rugby?
My dad, is we used to go to church in Canada when I was little, and I think they met some friends through like youth ministry way back, and so we'd go up and we'd visit them. And yeah, one of his friends was a rugby player, and so he got a Rugby for Dummies book, and just started pulling football players together in the area, and we'd go up to Canada and just spank teams up there.
I
Um,
love
they
it.
stopped and they stopped inviting us back because yeah, we would win.
You were beating them?
Yeah. So that was the beginning, and I would play up with the middle schoolers, and I was super timid. I was kind of a wuss, and so I get dragged around for the first like 4 or 5 years of playing rugby until I kind of sprouted up a little bit.
Did they have rugby in high school here?
No.
So did you travel?
Yeah. My junior and senior year, I used to go up to Canada to play rugby with Bayside Sharks. So
Okay.
that was like maybe even earlier on. It might have been sophomore year because my mom would give me rides up there.
Hmm.
Um,
I thought you traveled a bit playing rugby. Did you?
yeah, gone on tour. Went to Wales, went to England, Scotland, played a little bit in Italy.
That's fantastic. Great experience.
Yeah, and then we traveled throughout the U.S. too for like the select side like loggers,
Hmm.
like Arizona and Las Vegas, California, Oregon, and then like with Western, of course, we went to a few different tournaments just
Hmm.
around the states.
That's awesome. How many years did you play?
It's been like 15.
Yeah, I thought it was quite a while. So you and Christian have a very unusual relationship. And when he would talk about you, he would talk so highly about you. And he said, I've always taken care of my brother. And everything you did, he was always very connected to you. And do you
Mhm.
think that's why he recommended you to Mike? Did he see the potential in you and just knew that he loved you so much and wanted you wherever he was?
Yeah, I'm glad you steered back to that because that's kind of where we were getting started. Um, he's always told me he's my number one fan. He told me always remember that, always rooting you on. And part of the Built for Business deal with Mike, he was like, "Hey, I want my brother to design this. Like, I want him to be in part, like a part of the process." So
Hmm.
anything that he's done, he's always tried to set something up for me. He's always tried
Hmm.
to, create the path for me as an older brother,
Hmm.
you know,
Most people wouldn't
a
know
good
what
older
Built
brother
for
would do.
Business is. What is Built for Business?
Built for Business was, it's no longer a thing, but it was pretty much Mike creating this business with Christian where he, like you said, to retain him,
Yes.
um, or he creates this like year-long program, and there's like a muscle endurance phase where you're building muscle endurance. Then there's a strength phase where you're testing your strength, and then a hypertrophy phase, which he'd be better at telling you what that's about. But pretty much, you're gonna get jacked if you go in this program.
Yes.
And so he got as many clients as he could take as far as capacity goes. And so while he was learning Copilot and doing sales and still working at the gym at one point, and then he was doing his Built for Business calls where, he has to hold these guys accountable. They send their meals over every day. He's giving them tips and tricks. We filmed every single workout and plugged it into this True Coach app. So just he's just holding guys accountable, and Mike was doing the program too, and
Mhm.
that's what he had done before we got to conference, and yeah, he's
Well,
getting
I
buffed.
think
He's
Mike did
healthy.
that for a full year and took
Mhm.
a picture everywhere we were of his food. And I
Yep.
did it with him for a little while. And I remember him, Christian, be on him. You got to lift heavier. You got to lift heavier. And now look at Mike. He's been lifting heavy ever since. So
Yeah.
well, it wasn't, that was one of Mike's crazy ideas. And it worked for a while. It was successful. It got Christian in the door for sure.
And it could still work. I think it was just a matter of like Christian's personal capacity and then like
Yes.
Mike's involvement. And so there there wasn't like, I don't think there was really a return on that. Like it was more so Mike creating an opportunity. One for me, he like that's when he let me in and gave me my first opportunity to work a professional gig, and then gave Christian an opportunity to kind of flex that muscle and make something of
Mhm.
his own. And but Copilot's pretty demanding from a sales standpoint too, and so
So are you
he
saying
kind of
that
had to
you
cut it
got a
off.
little bit involved when he was doing Built for Business? Were you a part of that as well?
Yeah, I did like the brand design and shot my first videos. I would like film him doing the workouts, and it's terrible in terms of my performance. So yeah, but the design was good enough. Like it was a cool design, and we made some fun. We had some tank tops and stuff, and um, people were into it.
Yeah. So Mike was watching you this whole time and listening to Christian. And so, how did it come about that you started to come to Mike's attention really and him to be impressed enough with you to create a position for you?
I don't know if Mike was ever impressed with me. I think I think him and Zach, like Zach is the manager of the media team. They had called me in for an interview, and um, I think big a big thing is that they want to see you can work together
Hmm.
well with the team. Like skills can be cultivated, and I, had made it pretty clear to them, like, hey, like I'm willing to do what it takes. Like I'm willing to work hard, um, and I can figure the rest out. Like I'm
Hmm.
coachable, and so I think they didn't really have the means to take me on. Like they didn't really have a spot for me on the team, but they did it anyways, and I'm happy they did.
Mike would say the quality of your mom and the quality of your dad, and then the
Mhm.
quality of Christian. There was no way that you could not be of the same quality as them. And you were just so hungry. And
Mhm.
when you graduated, what kind of things in your creative design could you do? Could you film or could you just edit? Or what was that looking like?
I knew how to go through like a brand process, like um, bring like an idea into Illustrator and make a decent logo. I could like draw really well. Um, I had very minimal experience like working with video,
Hmm.
and I knew a little bit about like type rules, like how to work with text, and I had a little bit of experience doing like user design, creating websites, doing animations. So I was like well rounded, but I didn't have any real experience. I just had projects I created in classrooms. We did like a little bit of print stuff too. So kind of like bare bones.
Yeah. So did Mike hand you over to Zach and Zach just took over completely?
Somewhat. So like when I first got there, we were just creating shorts. We would like scrub through command center's calls and try and find like people getting upset, people being weird. Like
Yes.
for example, this guy was saying it an owl told him to like call us to get him a job or something like that, like something ridiculous. And then there's the people getting upset. They're like, "What? Like a dollar a man a minute? Like, are you kidding me?" But they're you know cursing up a storm. So we'd find calls like that. We'd put a bunch of B-roll over it, and then we just throw it out to the internet. And I was like, I have to get good at this. And there's like two other guys who were doing that. But yeah, Zach. Sorry to get back to your question. Like I would work with Mike a little bit. He would, kind of preface those videos. He'd like record something, throw it at me. We'd stitch it together, and then Zach would kind of tell me if it was up to par or not. And
Hmm.
um, it was more just they were always the thing was like progress over perfection. So
Hmm. Yeah. Who
yeah,
was with Zach at that time? Was it just you and Zach, or was there someone else on the team?
Steven, which is the senior editor, and then there was Kramer and Andrew. Um, Andrew had done like some podcast stuff at the time and kind of helped out where he could, Facebook group stuff. Kramer had just got hired on before me, and he was doing short form editing.
Hmm. And so you were not filming at that time. You were just
Nope,
editing.
no. I for the first 5 6 months of working at Augusta, I just did short form videos, and I got quick enough to do like 8 a day sometimes, just busting it out.
Yeah. I
Got
remember you
efficient.
working so hard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's good.
Hmm.
So, how
Yeah, it
in the
wasn't.
world did you get into actually filming?
um,
Was it desperation? They needed someone?
at
Or
the
were you
time,
watching YouTube
I'll
videos?
build I'll build up to it, but really it was Zach taking me out and just like filming the Bellingham guys, the
Hmm.
Augusta guys, so we could just get footage and content for social media and whatnot. And I learned a little bit through Built for Business, like how to
Hmm.
point a camera. That was
Yeah.
about it. How to turn it on. And one day, I know that at this time Steven was going on vacation. Zach had something going on, and I was available, and so Mike texted me at like 9 o'clock at night, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Working for you," the following day.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Do you want to go to Idaho?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So
Wow.
we've so he was doing he one of his franchisees reached out to him in Idaho, like Boise area. It was like the Meridian location, and um, he needed some help, some guidance, and Mike didn't tell him when he was coming, but he said he was coming, and he knew it was kind of dire because he was, considering selling it, whatever
Mhm.
the case was. So we just showed up, and I just had like an iPhone on a gimbal, and I'm like, anyone can point an iPhone on auto and just let it do its thing. So I was like, all right, we got this. So we had super brief rundown in the morning with Zach and Steven. Like they had taught me a lot up to that point, like as much as they could in terms
Mhm.
of what I was qualified to do at the time. And like, yeah, get into that later on. But that's how the turnaround series started. And then Mike would just be like, "Hey, go to the job site, get footage, and like see if you can get an interview." So I just
Mhm.
start asking questions, and it took a lot of mistakes, but we kind of forged what the turnaround was through mistakes, through
Mhm.
guidance, and then through like correction and um, through Mike's skill set and my skill set.
Mhm. I think he was comfortable having you come along because all these years he had done all the filming himself. He had walked around with the camera, he had went home and edited everything, and he was probably thinking, well, Terrell is better than no one. I can't film this all myself. And so I think that's why he would think, hey, why don't you come along with me and give it a try, even though you didn't have a lot of experience.
Yeah, I was happy he did. And the first episode turned out decent. The first because we went to Idaho and then we went to Alabama, and then we came home.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I
How
was
long ago was that?
super grateful. That was the summer of 2023.
Okay, so just last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I know that you go on these turnarounds with Mike, and
Mhm.
I believe that you are gifted at talking to people and getting things out of them. So the role that you've played when we watch the videos, are you the one that sits in the truck and kind of gets the background story from the people that he's coming to help?
Yeah, that's me. I'm
Now
kind
you
of a
ask good questions. Do you have a script, or do you just try to glean from them where they are in the company, how they're feeling, how things are going? Because I tell you, they cry a lot when you get in there.
yeah, I really care when I'm talking to these guys, and I think they can sense that. And
Hmm.
there's something about, well, I sometimes I have a script, and a lot of times I go off script, to answer
Okay.
your question. But I think a big part of it is like when somebody invites Mike out, and it's someone that they look up to, that they trust to
Hmm.
allow them to like change their business, their guard is down. It doesn't need to
Yeah,
be up anymore, and so they give me that respect because Mike is there.
got it.
Um, I'm listening intently to the coaching, trying to gather as much as I can while I'm filming,
Hmm.
the main coaching call. Um, but they recognize that I care.
Hmm.
They recognize that I'm in tune with what's going on, and there's something about asking a man about what motivates him
Hmm.
and getting him to walk through his beginning through to like where he's at right now,
Yeah.
that um, something's gonna get triggered that they haven't brought up within themselves in a long time. And so I
Hmm.
think that's the main mechanism that gets guys to like open up, especially when they're talking about their children, especially when they're talking about their faith. And
Hmm.
so those are some of the things that I've seen get guys to cry.
Yeah.
You know,
So when that happens, is what is Mike off doing while you are in the truck? Or is part of the team gone and filming guys on the team, or are you that person as well?
like filming the B-roll.
Yes. So you're in the truck, and so
Mhm.
all of us see that. We see somebody is sitting there filming, and then it looks like somebody's out in the field filming all the guys too. Are you doing that as well?
Yeah, I do a little bit of that. Things have changed. Like as soon as we brought Francis on, he's an editor and a videographer super talented guy. Um, Same as me, started out like almost blank slate, and then he just started crushing out of nowhere. But like ever since he started coming on the turnarounds with me, like the
Mm-hmm.
production went up um, just visually, and so
Mm-hmm.
we'll split up sometimes. So Mike will end the coaching call and he'll be like, "Hey Terrell, you want to hop in with them?" Kind of our like segue into um, me interviewing the owner, whether it's there at the office or just on the way to the job site. I'll just try and get a couple questions in, or we'll set up an interview.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm usually just doing interview stuff. Francis helps me set that up sometimes. And he goes off and does B-roll. And whatever time I have left, I'm throwing the drone up or I'm going and getting B-roll. But my main focus is to build the story and try and like capture the story in my head based on what the coaching looked like and what
Mm-hmm.
kind of issues that they're facing. So there's context to weave the story. So it's not just this podcast of a discussion. You can break it up with context of different key players and like managers or admin or crew leads or just workers,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what's going on.
Yeah. What have you discovered about yourself? Gifts about yourself, things in yourself you never thought would be coming out by being at Augusta? Like, did you know you could talk that well and care that much and pull that kind of information out of people? Had you experienced that before?
The only place I had experienced that was on the rugby field. I've got to be a captain of a team of like 40 guys for a couple of years, and I knew that I was good at one-on-one connection, and that when it
Mhm.
came to being a leader of a group, I tried to lead by example, and that looked
Mhm.
completely different when I got into um, the team at Augusta, the media team, and um, for example, like I had pretty low confidence, and I decided to take a very humble route and a hardworking route. I remember
Mhm.
one of the first meetings we had, I had no idea what Steven and Zach and Mike were talking about, and so when it came to time for me to say something, I was like, "What's brol?" You guys said something in the group chat about brol. They're like, "Dude, B-roll,
I
B-roll." They're
remember
like,
that.
so that's where I started, and then just through watching, through asking the right questions, through spending a lot of time with Mike. I learned how to be confident. I learned how to be humble, and I learned how to manage my time.
Mhm.
I learned how to like strike at different opportunities that didn't necessarily have anything to do with my role. Just being available.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I learned how to think for myself a little bit, and a lot of that was, you know, my girlfriend. A lot of that was Zach's leadership. A lot of that was just watching Mike and just
Mhm.
taking advantage of the time that we had together. Like we'd to sleep in a room for the first, 20 turnarounds
Mhm.
and wake up super early and drive and catch flights. And it's a lot of time together. So
Yeah.
he's been a huge mentor. And a lot of that comes from my brother. We would come home after work. We got to work next to each other and sit at a desk next to each other. Like that's something we've always wanted. And
Yeah.
um,
Even though
he's
you were
paved,
different businesses.
yeah, he's
That's
just paved the way for a lot of things, and, like, I could give credit to anyone, anyone who's been close to me, but it's, like, always being able to check in with him and kinda break down how we're feeling about, the situations we're coming across and, like, what all this business knowledge, means, and, like, also watching other people who have far more responsibility and, higher stakes decisions, and, you learn a lot from that, from other
yeah.
people's failures and mistakes and from your own, so, I mean, I just learned how to be confident in myself and be okay with failing.
Yeah, that is incredible. So, how have you changed over time? You've gotten more confidence. You've gotten better at the job. And what about your faith? I know that has plays a big part in what you do and in your life. And you said before that your parents, they raised you in the church, but then they just let you do what you wanted. And you're a very strong person of faith. And how did that come to be for you?
I think it started with some of the life decisions that I was making.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had to kind of fall on my face quite literally
Mm-hmm.
um, to get to that point. So there's times where I was out drinking and like got sucked into, you know, culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put myself in some crappy situations and ended up in the hospital. And um, I had a decision to make. And so that I had moved in with my parents after I got injured pretty badly. I like fell off a porch like 10 feet and,
Mm-hmm.
probably shouldn't have made it, but I did. And I was fine. Um, and so I moved in with my folks and my dad kind of like course corrected me and s- we just started a Bible study
Hmm.
and that changed everything. That one Bible study. It's called Chronicles of Redemption and like you could download the book for free
Mm-hmm.
and it'll just walk you through like the steps of the Bible. And I thought I had awareness of it and I
Mm-hmm.
thought I knew about the word.
Mm-hmm.
And now I know every time I pick it up, I'm like, oh, I know little to nothing. I am a child in my faith. And
Mm-hmm.
so I still feel like that. Um, but just getting my perception opened up and like understanding that it's a living word has like completely changed my outlook on everything else. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's by no means did I just go through that Bible study of like 15 weeks and just be like, I'm a follower of Christ. I mean, I was a follower of Christ, but I'm not. It wasn't like I've got it all figured out now. It was
Yes.
more just like this slow process of building and learning. And through my fellowship with my family, like we all kind of just like had this awakening. We
Mm-hmm.
started seeing things going on in the world around us that were like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not right. We just we just started waking up and we started pushing each other to grow in our faith, and it still continues to this day. We're still on that path, and I think being able to work for someone like Mike, who has faith, has been a big proponent in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just having good leaders who are
Yeah.
willing to give credit to like a higher source, a higher power, and I think a big change
Mm-hmm.
from where I started and where I'm at right now has to do with my ability to trust
Mm-hmm.
um, in that source, trust in Christ, trust in God.
So do you feel
And
like there's a bigger picture that God is woven over time to do something in your life to be what you are now? You're having a pretty big impact all over.
yeah, it's all His work. I don't, I don't really know what my direction is. I know what my gifts are, and so I'm using that. I'm still trying to figure that out. And
Mm-hmm.
I know He placed me in Mike's life, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a role to play here. And when it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And and that's how I feel about it. And I feel the same way about the people I've seen who have come and gone. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel the same way about the mentorship that I received from Zach and Steven and the companionship that I built with Francis, working in these turnarounds and the friendship that I built with Mike and how much I've learned from him. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it's something that's meant to happen to build one another up and create the systems that we have, right?
Yeah. What about your business acumen? Did you know much about business or anything like that? Or have you just grown as you've been at Augusta and learning little bitty things? I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of business information that you deal with.
I'm just laughing because I don't even know what acumen means.
What you know about business. So, your business education or what you understand.
Little to nothing, like starting out. Um,
But
I
don't you
just like,
feel like now you understand so much more?
yeah, when it comes to home service businesses, I feel pretty dialed in.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do what Mike does, but I could at least understand what he does.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah,
gives you an understanding of what to ask though when you're with people.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've have this like outside of doing turnaround stuff, like anybody has a home service business, like we're getting into it. I want to
Yeah.
know what's going on.
That's so
if they're
cool.
willing to share, of course.
Yes, yes. So you have the most incredible story of how you came to meet your girlfriend, which is way out of the normal of what anybody could ever imagine or put together. So tell us how you met her.
Her name's Michaela. Um, I met her on the sixth turnaround.
Oh,
So it
wow,
was
you
the
remember.
fifth or sixth. I don't know. But it was the second trip that Mike and I took, and we went to this company in New Hampshire. It was like St. Laurent Property Management, and she was working the desk there. She was um, doing doing the company's admin stuff. She was young, and I was just a fly on the wall. I watched her and Mike like she was in a position where she was underpaid,
Mm,
and the person working under her that she was training was getting paid more than her just so the company could, operate and not
mhm,
go under type deal. And she needed help. And so I admired her from the jump. And,
mhm,
she's a beautiful young girl. And um, I had nothing to do with the company's fixing. I just watched her and Mike work it out.
mhm,
That doesn't go to say it's fixed today. But at the time, that's what was going on. So didn't even talk to her. I think I ran back because Mike forgot the keys and just like, thank you guys, I'm leaving. Um, but I was aware of her.
mhm.
And I
So it was
remember,
close. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, this is like the long version, but um, Mike invited them to conference like 2 weeks later. And so they
Mhm,
came, and I had spent the 2 weeks prior editing that episode.
mm,
So all their little synchronicities and all the different things that they say, their movements, I had watched on repeat to edit this
mhm,
episode, and so I feel like I knew them just from like witnessing all that. We didn't do any interviews that episode, so I didn't have any one-on-one time, but I was aware, and I knew she was going to be there, and I knew I wanted to talk to her, and
mhm.
so I got locked out of the
You
green room
slept.
at lunch. I was so wait, what?
I don't think you slept.
No, I didn't. So I was stressed out of my mind. I didn't really know what I was doing at conference. I was just kind of flying around, trying to get direction where I could. And shout out Zach for always being super level headed, and Steven
Mhm,
for always giving me guidance. And um, I got locked out of the green room. I couldn't eat lunch with everybody, so I went in the main conference hall, and she was the first person I saw. So I went and sat down next to her. And I remember while I was filming, on her leg, she has a tattoo that says, "Oh," it's like OBW, and then
mhm.
under it says tripod. It looked like she wrote on her leg in Sharpie. Um, and I thought she was trying to tell me like, "Oh, by the way, you need a tripod." Like I wasn't cutting it. So I saw that. I asked her about it, and it means like one ball wonder. Her brother had testicular cancer, and then her sister had
Mm,
like scoliosis. So that was tripod. It was tattooed on her leg. So that was one of the first things we like, "Hey, what were you trying to tell me there?" And she's like, "It's a tattoo, dude." And it blew my mind to see her. She was like
yeah,
she had like tattoos all up her arm, but she was just like the sweetest, sharpest girl. And from the jump, I
mhm,
just was super interested in her. And um, long story short, long story long, um, we stayed up till like we threw some pillows out in conference, and we just threw them on the floor, and we just talked till like 4 in the morning, and
mhm,
it was nothing really. I mean, semi-romantic, but nothing like romantic or physical about it. We just sat there and talked, and then we went and did our thing and paid for it the next day. I was tired.
yes, no kidding. I remember you sitting on the floor trying to edit over there, and I'm like, man, he is wiped out. Why?
Yeah, everybody was wiped out. But man, let me tell you, it was worth it. Next day, same thing. We just stayed up till like 5 in the morning talking, and we had to go do the franchisee conference after that. And even during that, I was just like, I have to work. So I was just like
Yeah.
stitching together a bunch of shorts while listening to that and filming it. And um, we never lost contact. We knew we
Mhm,
had something special. It was super apparent, and it's one of those things where you look at somebody and it's like I know her without actually having known her for very
mhm,
long. And then yeah, it's one of those things. And that was the whole feeling of the conference. You could feel the spirit move and connect with people and make connections and build people up. And I knew what that was, and I had faith in it. So we just kept talking. 3 months later, she had come to visit. I went to visit her. Her father's like, "Who's this guy?"
No kidding.
That from across the country. So it took a little while to warm that relationship up and build that trust. And one day she's just like, I want to stay. I'm like, yeah, you should stay. And she's like, don't say that unless you mean it. And
Yeah, that's a big move.
we were officially dating at this point. And then she went home, packed up her stuff, and came. She moved into my
Incredible.
teeny little apartment where I'm sitting right now.
Wow. So, what's really unusual about this business owner called for help to come to his
Mhm.
business and to turn it around. And she was there working for him, working so hard, really holding the whole thing together. And usually we do, you follow up later to see how the owner did and things. And he was not successful as far as we know. The business didn't do well after that. But it's almost like the whole thing was for the two of you.
Yeah, it does seem like that.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not to say the coaching wasn't amazing and that the work that they did was could have fixed the business.
Hmm.
I won't pretend to know where that company's at, or I know a little bit about what took place, but that's not important. Like, we were brought together. She
Yeah.
felt called to go to that job, and we made a really strong connection. So
Yeah.
super
And she
thankful for
did
that.
great while she was there and was a big influence on him. And so who knows?
Yeah.
Yep. So today, where are you at Augusta? What's your position? What do you do there in a typical day?
It's changed as of recently, so I'll get into that after I kind of give a rundown of what I've been doing, just because I know I'm gonna miss it. Um, so I do short form content, um, kind of dicing up long form
Hmm.
stuff or just creating it. I did a lot of production, so I'd sync up all the audio and footage from the turnaround episodes,
Hmm.
and then I'd cut up all the B-roll and I'd label the story out and hand it off to the editors. Um, so they just have a quicker editing process. And for a while, I
Hmm.
was doing that, just those two things. And then once a month, we would travel out to a couple different states and shoot the turnarounds. So I was in charge of making sure the equipment got home. Funny story there. One time it didn't. No, actually, it wasn't
Tell us the
funny.
story.
Um, this is a whole nother can of worms.
Hey, that's where we get where we are today is these funny things that happen that are so incredibly awful when they happen.
Yeah, we do laugh about it now. I still get made fun of, but pretty much, I didn't know what I was doing. I had a good idea.
Hmm.
I was carrying the equipment. We got on a flight like we do. I got this red tag that I did not read, and I'm like, I don't know what this means. I'm supposed to
Hmm.
pick. I guess I'm gonna pick this bag up by baggage claims. They didn't let me take it on.
Hmm.
So I got off the plane. I'm like, what do I do with this? Like, just like pick it up at the belt or whatever.
Hmm.
And let me say again, I didn't read the card. Pick up at the Sky Bridge. It was a red tag, and so I didn't. The bag didn't get picked up as we're driving to the hotel, having a grand time. I'm like, I don't have. No, we literally pulled into the hotel. I'm like, I don't have the bag. I don't have our camera stuff. So we go back and we tried to chase it down. Like weeks later, actually, when Michaela, my girlfriend, visited for the first time, I had got my hands on the bag, and we didn't have a lock on it or anything. I had made the airline folks that were helping me out very well aware that I needed this bag, that there was nice things in there.
Hmm.
And what do you know? Nothing is in there. When I open it up, um, everything was gone. They took it.
What was the value of that?
So um, I think it was like 7 to 8 grand for everything that had gone missing.
Wow. This is a perfect testament to the way Mike is, because I've worked for
Yeah.
Augusta for 9 years and I've made some huge mistakes that cost a lot of money. How did Mike react to you? I'm sure it was similar to the same as me.
He was really calm about it. I think he knew that I was gonna be hard on myself about it and that he didn't
Yes.
really need to reprimand me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I questioned him like, do I deserve to keep my job?
Mm-hmm.
And we just didn't have. Yeah, he was super graceful about it. And
Mm-hmm. Be gracious.
maybe Zach withheld one of my raises to kind of make up for some of
Mm-hmm.
those things, but they
Mm-hmm.
super gracious, super calm. Um, wasn't interested in like punishing me. He was kind of like, "Hey, this is a mistake. Like this can't happen again,
Yeah.
and we can correct it." So,
Mm-hmm. How do you think that changed you in the future turnarounds? Were you more responsible? Did you have trouble for a while?
we created a lot of systems. We like airtight her bag, put a lock on it. I'm like first in line to get on the plane. I'm like that annoying person who's getting in line first to like get to my spot so I can
Yes.
get all the overhead storage type deal. I've still lost things. Like the shoots are stressful and they're a little chaotic. And as of lately, it's been much easier with two people. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, then there's times where I don't like get audio or something like that in the
Mm-hmm.
past or even recently. And so the shoots are never perfect, but um, I try to fix my mistakes. And for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, I have. So.
Mm-hmm. So you said that your role has transitioned in the last little bit. How has that changed?
So I'm moving to Tennessee. My brother and his family are out there. My parents are out there, and um, I felt called to be out there and closer to Michaela's family. So um, pretty much presented that to my boss, and um, him and Mike got together and decided to keep me on or allow me to stay on. Offered me a contract to do some short form stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this seems to be where I can provide value in other places, and I'd like to. Like, I'd love to
Mm-hmm.
keep doing these turnarounds. I would love to do long form editing, but as of right now, this is a position that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna be rolling with that. 2 a day, come back once a month, and get some Washington pay in Tennessee. Be cool.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. So you said your brother, and for the listener, this brother is also a Christian who worked for Copilot. So how in the world did he end up in Tennessee?
That dude's an asset. You
Yes,
cannot, you can't replace Christian.
that's true.
Um, and you said his main strength is sales. His main strength is connecting with people.
Mm,
He's building real friendships with these owners. So, I think that's why he was allowed to stay on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Which
he's
Mike
been
was,
looking forward to moving out of this area for the longest time. Ever since he got out of the Marine Corps, he's like looking for a community that suits his characteristics better.
yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Washington is a very liberal state.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nose.
Yeah. It doesn't welcome people like Christian with very strong beliefs.
That's the thing. He's very compassionate, but
He is.
He's not willing to give ground on things that don't make sense.
Right.
And I think
Right.
I feel the same way, even though I have a ton of love for everybody we work with.
Yeah.
We're all
Yeah.
so different, and a lot of them lean liberal. I could care less. It's like,
Yeah.
what is your character like, and are your beliefs like? Even the out of belief pockets, or out of pocket beliefs. I'm
Hmm.
like, that's fine. Don't rub it in my face, please.
Yes, exactly. So when you thought of doing this interview with me today, were there specific things that you thought that you would want to share that we haven't talked about yet?
No, we literally covered everything. I thought we would talk about Mike a little bit more, but like at, at the same time,
Yeah, it's
we
about
did talk
you.
about him quite a bit.
It's about your
Sweet.
experience, Augusta.
I didn't even know. My main goal was to just make sure I represent the media team
Hmm.
and I gave credit to where credit is due,
Yes.
and maybe tell some funny stories about some mistakes I made. So
Yeah. So, how do you feel about those that would come behind you? What kind of advice would you give somebody who started with no experience and is where you are today in a company like Augusta?
people that are going to come onto the media team, or just
Or
generally speaking.
in general, the way you've grown as a person and in a business, if they were coming into a business that was a startup like Augusta, it's not like you came in and everything was figured out. You've grown with the system. So what would you say to a young man who is kind of like you were? What do you think that over time has changed things for you, and what kind of advice would you give to them?
I think a lot of it's just about communication and like being able to. I'll put it this way. I one day I talked to Dr. Kashi, actually the only time I've talked to him, and like, hey man, I get stressed before I get into these shoots, and like I want to be better prepared. And I
Mhm.
just wondered, I just wondered why he was the way he was, how he carried himself the way he did, and the way he communicated. And one lesson that he taught me was um, take an uncomfortable situation or a topic that you would like to talk about, but you don't. You're always going to be the best at speaking about the things that you know about.
Mhm.
Um, and so he told me to take those uncomfortable situations and intentionally put myself in them to get reps.
Wow.
Um, and so that's like a really simple, less elegant way of communicating, because I was just like overwhelmed when he's just like spitting all this knowledge at me.
Mhm.
Um, but I think just be intentional about how you communicate with your team.
Mhm.
Admit to your failures. Nobody wants to work with somebody who's not going to admit their failures.
Mhm.
Um, and have something different to offer than your other teammates. Don't just do what other folks are doing, and try and push the brand a little bit. Or um, and ultimately, you could have all the skills in the world, if you can't work with people, then you're not going to work on a team, you're not going to jive on a team. So um, outside of that, you got to be coachable, you got to grow
Mhm.
with the company, or you're going to get left behind, as we've seen. So
Wow, that's incredible advice. Yeah. And you and I have had the unusual opportunity to be close to Dr. Kashi only because of our association with Mike. So I think it's important to surround yourself with good people that are going in a good direction, because you and I have been blessed by then being friends with Dr. Kashi.
shout out Mike for connecting us.
Yes, yes,
I mean,
100%.
that's the most valuable asset right there, and I think you've done plenty more to deserve that connection and that opportunity. I kind of just snuck my way in there, so
But it's
I
been
think you're
good.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, it's been good. Well, thank you for coming on today. I know it's a little bit uncomfortable to be in front of the camera instead of behind it, making other people look amazing. But I wanted people to hear your story and how you've come to grow with us, with me at Augusta. And I really appreciate your time.
thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. And I know one thing we didn't mention is that I walk by your desk every single morning. Sometimes we chit chat about our life, and just your consistency and being available to a lot of different people and creating opportunities for people. And um, it's been a big part of the journey. So
Yeah,
thanks, Liz.
it's been an honor to be able to work with you every day. I will miss you when you move to Tennessee.
I'll miss all you guys. Uh, I might even miss that like mall center place office that we work at.
The
So,
place with one bathroom.
hey, we got two now.
You
I'm
got
a
two
big fan of that
bathrooms.
second bathroom.
We're coming up from the outhouse.
Yeah, I'll definitely miss you guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a great day. Thanks for your time.